My husband's cousin and I were both tied up at the edge of a cliff. The kidnapper said only one of us could live. My husband, his eyes red, walked toward me. Arya, you should jump. It won't hurt, really. You've practiced martial arts since you were a child, and you grew up in the wild. You might even survive. And so, with tears in my eyes, I pushed him off the cliff. If it doesn't hurt, then you go first, husband. The wind on the cliff was strong. It stung my face as it whipped past. I stared blankly at Julian before me, his outline blurring in the wind. But his words were so clear, each one a shard of ice piercing my bones. 3 years ago, something similar had happened. Julian was a brave and skilled warrior, and he had made countless enemies. His enemies, not daring to face him directly, resorted to the most despicable means. They tied me up in the desolate mountains, forcing him to kneel and kowtow, stripping him of all his pride. That iron-willed man, without a moment's hesitation, slammed his knees into the mud. The enemy leader laughed cruelly as he plunged a knife into his body. 1 stab, 2 stabs. I lost count of how many. I only remember that the blood nearly stained the entire hillside red, but he just covered my eyes, silent, and endured it all. He was in a coma for a whole month. Everyone said he wouldn't make it, but miraculously, he pulled through. When he woke up, his first instinct was to comfort me. Arya, don't be afraid. Your life is 1,000 times more important than mine. I, Julian, swear to the heavens that I will never let you be in danger again, unless I am dead. That vow still echoed in my ears. But now, this same man, for another woman, had chosen to make me jump, without a second thought. Seeing my silence, Julian walked closer. He reached out and caressed my cheek, his tone gentle, as if coaxing a disobedient child. Arya, you have the kindest heart. You can understand me, can't you? Lila has been frail and sickly since she was a child. If she jumps, she will surely die. Trust me, this is just a temporary measure. I will find a way to save you later. I will never let you die. I looked up, tears blurring my vision. But husband, I am carrying your child. 2 lives. Are you sure you want me to jump? I had planned to tell him the good news at the right time. I never expected this to happen first. A sliver of hope remained in my heart. For the sake of the child, would he? Hearing my words, Julian looked at my belly in disbelief. A storm of emotions raged in his eyes. Shock, hesitation, and a hint of struggle. He opened his mouth, as if to say something. Sister-in-law. Just as he was about to speak, Lila, who had been standing to the side, suddenly spoke in a timid voice. But you just had your monthly visitor a few days ago. As if realizing she had said something she shouldn't have, she quickly covered her mouth, her eyes filling with tears. She looked at Julian, her voice choked. Cousin, don't make things difficult for her. Let me jump. I've been an orphan since I was young, with no one to rely on. Even if I die, no one will miss me. She turned her face slightly, and tears rolled down her cheeks. Lila wishes you and your sister-in-law a long and happy life together. She paused, her gaze sweeping over my stomach, and added with a bitter smile, and a healthy son soon. That she closed her eyes, ready to die. Let her go, I'll jump. Julian roared. No, Lila must not jump. He turned to glare at me, the struggle in his eyes gone, replaced by undisguised disgust. Arya. He chidsa me sharply. When did you become so selfish and vicious? You would even lie about being pregnant just to save your own skin. Where is your kindness? Has it been eaten by a dog? He took a step closer. If you still consider me your husband, then jump yourself. Otherwise, I stared at him steadily. Otherwise, what? Are you planning to push me yourself, husband? His eyes flickered, avoiding my gaze, his tone harsh. Don't blame me, Arya. This is the only choice I have. Tears silently trickled into the corners of my mouth. So bitter. The last bit of hope in my heart was completely crushed. I nodded, as if all my strength had been drained. All right. I heard my own voice say, I agree, I'll jump. Julian let out a sigh of relief. Good. That is my good Arya. I spoke softly, my tone pleading. Husband, I only have one request. Can you hold me one last time? A flash of impatience crossed his face. But perhaps as a reward for my obedience, or to get this over with quickly, he finally reached out and pulled me into his arms. Arya, don't worry, I won't let you die. I will find the best doctors to treat you. Trust me. This embrace was once my entire world, broad and warm. It could shield me from all the storms of the world. Now I know without him the sun always shines. I had actually untied my ropes in secret. I was just waiting for the right moment to save Lila. Now it seems that is no longer necessary. The kidnapper to the side had clearly lost his patience. He held his knife to Lila's throat and swore viciously. Damn it! What is with all this life and death drama? Are you going to jump or not? If not, I'll kill this little beauty right now. Julian let go of me in a panic. In that instant, I grabbed his wrist and pushed him toward the cliff. You! His pupils dilated. His face filled with shock. But it was too late. Watching his rapidly falling figure, I let out a soft laugh. If it doesn't hurt, then you go first, husband. The cliff was bottomless. His terrified screams echoed for a long time. This sudden turn of events left the other two frozen in place. Lila was the first to react. She was no longer frail. She pushed the kidnapper aside and lunged at me, screaming, Arya, you vicious woman! You dared to kill my cousin! I'll make you pay with your life! I was prepared and easily dodged her. My gaze fell on her wrist, which had been raised by her movement delicate and smooth without a single red mark. Unlike me, my skin was already raw and bleeding from the ropes. The last bit of hesitation in my heart vanished. Since you can't bear to be without him, then go and join him. I reached out, grabbed her hair, and dragged her to the edge of the cliff. Ah! She screamed in pain, the venom in her eyes replaced by deep fear. Her hands flailed wildly in the air. Arya, let go of me. You can't. I curled my lips and interrupted her hysterical cries. Down you go. With that, I pushed her off the cliff. Ah, Arya, you will die a horrible death. I will not let you go even as a ghost. Her scream was even louder than Julian's. It echoed through the valley, lingering for a long time. I turned away, indifferent. The kidnapper was trembling with fear and tried to run. I kicked the back of his knee. Ah! He cried out and fell to his knees. Mercy, my lady, mercy! He ignored the pain and kowtowed desperately. It wasn't my fault. It was that venomous woman who made me do it. To save his life, he confessed everything. She secretly found me a month ago and gave me 200 silver taels. She told me to pretend to be a kidnapper and ambush you on this remote road to the temple. She said. She said there would be a big reward afterward. I was just doing it for the money, please. My lady, have mercy and let me go. So, that is how it was. A few days ago, Lila had asked me to accompany her to the temple to pay respects to her parents. I didn't think much of it and agreed. When our carriage reached a desolate area, she suddenly clutched my sleeve, complaining of a stomachache and needing to find a private place. So, I had my attendants wait while I, with only my maid Alara, went with her into the woods. After a while, she suddenly screamed. I rushed to check on her. Just as my attention was focused on her, I felt a sharp blow to the back of my neck. Before I could see who it was, my vision went black, and I lost consciousness. When I opened my eyes again, I found myself and Lila tied up at the edge of the cliff. The slightest misstep would send us plummeting into the abyss. The kidnapper claimed to have a blood feud with Julian. He sent Alara back to deliver a message, demanding that Julian come alone. And so, lately, I had even been worrying about her marriage, carefully considering all the eligible young men in the capital, wanting only to find her a good match. I had given her my sincere heart, but all she wanted was for me to die. Pushing her off the cliff just now was far too easy for her. The kidnapper's eyes were now filled with a primal fear. My lady, my ancestor, I'm begging you, spare my worthless life. He kowtowed like a madman, his forehead already a bloody mess. I have a 70-year-old mother and a 3-year-old son to support. You've already killed those two. Please don't kill me too. I was about to speak when my ears twitched. In the distance, the faint sound of hooves was rapidly approaching on the mountain path. Orderly, steady, and swift. Someone was coming. Having practiced martial arts since childhood, my senses were far sharper than a normal person's. The sound of those hooves was like a heavenly melody to my ears. The time had come. I looked down at the kidnapper, my eyes cold. I can spare you. A look of ecstatic relief washed over his face, but my next words made him freeze. Get up now and choke me. His eyes widened in disbelief. What? I frowned impatiently and punched him in the face. Ah! He cried out in pain, blood gushing from his nose, his confusion deepening. I said, choke me. Don't you understand? I glanced in the direction of the hoofbeats, my tone more urgent. Choke me hard, then shout, you bitch, you're going to die too! He finally understood that this was not a joke. It was his only chance of survival. He scrambled to his feet, his hands reverently approaching my neck. Is this right? He asked timidly, not daring to use any force. Haven't you eaten? I hissed in a low voice. Harder. If you don't choke me to death, I'll send you down to join them right now. A fierce glint appeared in his eyes. He suddenly tightened his grip, his hands closing around my throat. You bitch, you're going to die too! He roared, his voice echoing through the mountains. A strong sense of suffocation instantly washed over me. Just as my vision was going black, swoosh, an arrow shot through the air and embedded itself in his forehead. The kidnapper's hands went limp, and his body fell backward without a sound. I bent over, coughing violently. The burning pain in my throat made it almost impossible to make a sound. The purple-red bruises on my white skin looked even more gruesome. My lady. A cry came from a short distance away. I looked up to see Alara, holding up her skirts, stumbling toward me. Her hair was in disarray, her hairpin askew, her face filled with panic. Behind her were more than a dozen elite guards in black armor. Alara carefully touched the marks on my neck, and tears instantly welled up in her eyes. My lady, how are you? Are you badly hurt? The matriarch heard that the general had left the city alone and nearly fainted. She ordered me to take her token and summon a team of elite guards. She looked at me, alone, and was a little confused. Where are the general and the young miss? Why aren't they here? My tears fell in response, my voice hoarse. Why did you take so long? My husband and she were pushed off by that villain. I tried to stop him, but I could only watch. With that, I pushed her away and stumbled toward the cliff. Let me go with them. Without my husband, I don't want to live alone. My lady, you can't. Alara grabbed me from behind, her arms tight around my waist. You are the general's life. Now that his fate is unknown, you can't have any accidents either. By now, the guards understood what had happened. Hearing the news of Julian's fall, their faces were filled with grief. The leading deputy commander, Liam, knelt on the ground, his face pained. It is my fault for being late. Please forgive me, my lady. But I hope you will take care of yourself. I swear to the heavens that I will find the general, even if it means my own death. Please take care of yourself. My lady, we swear to find the general. All the guards behind him knelt in unison. The cliff was bottomless. Mist shrouded it year-round. Everyone knew that a fall from such a height meant certain death. You must find him. I cried until my heart broke, until all my strength was gone. I leaned heavily against Alara. Alive or dead, I must see his body. The last few words seemed to take all the strength I had, overcome with grief. My body went limp, and I fainted. For the next few days, I was in a semi-comatose state due to excessive grief. Until the morning of the 7th day, the time was right. I could finally wake up. I heard voices from the courtyard. It was Liam. His voice was choked. Matriarch, I have failed you. The men searched for 7 days and nights along the river at the bottom of the cliff. We only found a short leg that had been mauled by wild animals. The clothes were the general's. There was a lot of blood around. I'm afraid the general has met with a terrible fate. His remains may have been by the wild animals in the mountains. Before he could finish, the courtyard fell silent. My mother-in-law let out a heart-wrenching wail. Then came the sharp sound of a cup shattering and the panicked cries of the servants. Matriarch? Matriarch? What is wrong? Quick, help her! Pinch her philtrum! Doctor, go get the doctor! In the midst of the chaos, I let out a timely, weak cough. Alara, who was by my bedside, rushed over, her voice a mixture of joy and tears. My lady, you're finally awake. Her cry silenced the courtyard for a moment. Then came a rush of footsteps. The door creaked open. Arya, you're finally awake? Her voice was broken and hoarse. I struggled to sit up, my face filled with urgency. Mother, I think I heard Deputy Commander Liam's voice. Is he back? Did he find my husband? My husband is fine, right? I reached out and grabbed her sleeve, like a drowning person clutching at a final piece of driftwood. She gripped my hand back, her fingertips icy and trembling violently. She looked at me and shook her head sadly, tears falling down her cheeks. Julian, he is not coming back. I seemed not to understand her words. I blinked blankly and murmured, What do you mean? Not coming back, Mother? What are you saying? I don't understand. Then, as if I had suddenly realized, I went mad, trying to throw off the covers and get out of bed. You're lying to me. My husband would never. I'm going to find him. No, Arya, behave. My mother-in-law held me down, her voice hoarse. I've already lost Julian. If anything happens to you, it will be the death of me. She gripped my hand tightly, as if afraid I would disappear if she let go. Her gaze fell on my stomach. Arya, even if not for yourself, you have to think about the child in your belly. The doctor just confirmed yesterday that you are nearly 2 months pregnant. This is the only part of Julian left in this world. Arya, please, for the sake of this child, you must live. I was struck as if by lightning. All my struggles ceased. Arya, from now on, it will just be the 3 of us. We have to rely on each other. My hand trembled as I carefully placed it on my stomach. The next moment, as if my immense grief had finally found an outlet, I burst into tears. As I cried, my eyelashes fluttered, and my body went limp, falling backward. My mother-in-law's terrified voice rang out. Arya, quick, get the doctor! No one saw the almost imperceptible curve of my lips. The court sent a team to search the bottom of the cliff for another 10 days. The terrain was extremely treacherous. Steep cliffs, deep, turbulent streams, and frequent signs of wolves. It was a place where humans rarely ventured. Julian had almost no chance of survival. Left with no choice, the family placed the recovered leg in a coffin, as a substitute for his body, to hold a funeral. The imperial edict of posthumous honors arrived the afternoon before the official funeral. At that time, the estate was draped in white, the atmosphere heavy. A palace eunuch, holding a bright yellow silk scroll, hurried over. I, dressed in heavy mourning clothes, my face pale, was supported by Alara as I knelt at the front of the mourning hall. The eunuch's high-pitched voice began. First, he recounted Julian's glorious military achievements, lamenting his untimely death, and posthumously bestowing upon him the title of Marquis of Zhongyang, with a grand funeral. Then, he mentioned me. The lady of the Julian family, of the Chu clan, is of a gentle and virtuous nature. She has shown unwavering devotion to her husband, and filial piety to her mother-in-law. Her virtue and grace are a model for all women. Now, having suddenly lost her husband, her grief is so profound that all who hear of it are moved. His Majesty is deeply compassionate, and hereby confers upon her the title of first-rank Lady Zhenjing, with a double stipend and a golden seal, to honor her virtue and comfort her heart. The title, Zhenjing, meaning chaste and respectful, was heavier than 1,000 pounds of gold. It was the highest honor for a virtuous widow, silencing all possible future criticism. The eunuch paused briefly. His gaze fell on my stomach, and his tone softened. Furthermore, in consideration of the Marquis of Zhongyang's service to the nation and the pity of his bloodline, a special grace is bestowed. If the lady's unborn child is a son, he will immediately be named the heir to the marquisate and will inherit the title upon coming of age. If a daughter, she will be granted the title of Princess Yongle, with a fief of 1,000 households and the honors of a prince's daughter. This is to continue the line of loyal subjects and to comfort the soul of the fallen general. I looked up in shock, my eyes filled with gratitude. I kowtowed deeply in the direction of the imperial city. "Thank you, Your Majesty. Long live, long live, long live the Emperor." As I stood up, I swayed, nearly collapsing, but Alara caught me in time. My mother-in-law behind me was already sobbing. "The Emperor's grace is boundless. Arya, this is what Julian bought with his life. You deserve this. Tomorrow Julian can also have a more grand and dignified departure." I dug my nails into my palms, my tears falling even faster. But inside, I was ecstatic. "Julian, you died so well. When did I ever have such dignity when you were alive? Promotion, wealth, and a dead husband." Every word of that saying was true. On the day of the funeral, the front of the estate was a river of carriages. The nobles and officials of the capital all came to pay their respects. I was dressed in white, my face haggard. I thanked each guest who came to offer their condolences. I had already soaked a handkerchief in onion juice. Every time I wiped my eyes, tears would roll down my cheeks. Several of the older ladies who were close to the family were heartbroken and came to hold my hand, their own tears falling before they could speak. "My dear child, you have suffered so much. The Marquise in heaven would not want to see you so grieved." I just shook my head, my tears falling harder, my throat choked with sobs, unable to utter a single word, as if I had lost the ability to speak from grief. My mother-in-law, watching from the side, was even more heartbroken. She tried to comfort me. "I only hope you can hold on. If you collapse too, I can't go on either." There were so many people. My feet ached. So, my body suddenly trembled, and I fell limply toward a nearby maid. "My lady! Quick, help her! Doctor, get the doctor!" The morning hall was thrown into chaos. My mother-in-law was so shocked she nearly fainted and had to be supported by servants. I was carried to the inner chambers. When I came to, the funeral was over, and the guests had left. My mother-in-law was by my bedside, weeping. When she saw me open my eyes, she quickly took my hand, her voice filled with fear. "Arya, you scared me to death. Alara said you haven't eaten or drunk anything these past few days. You can't keep abusing your body like this. I'm begging you, for the sake of the child, please live well, okay? From now on, you are my daughter. As long as I am here, I will protect you." I leaned against her, sobbing after this incident. My reputation for being deeply devoted and nearly following her husband in death spread throughout the capital. Everyone praised my virtue and loyalty. After all, everyone had seen how Julian and I had been a loving and harmonious couple over the years. Who would believe that I had pushed him off a cliff? Even my mother-in-law believed me completely. When I was feeling better, to help me recover and to give me something to do, she handed over the household keys and account books to me. She herself moved into the family's Buddhist hall, spending her days with a single lamp and a statue of Buddha. She prayed only for my safe delivery and the continuation of the Julian line. In just 6 months, the staff of the estate had been quietly replaced with my own loyal people. The Marquise's estate was now an iron fortress, completely under my control, power in my hands, a child in my belly, and the sympathy and praise of the world. It seemed I had won everything, but a nagging unease lingered in my heart, as if something was growing in the darkness, unseen and approaching. My body grew heavier, and I needed a maid to help me even to turn over. After checking my pulse, the doctor repeatedly warned, "My lady, you must rest. The delivery is in a month. You must not have any stress." My mother-in-law had been listless lately. Yesterday, she even went to the most renowned temple in the suburbs alone, saying she wanted to get a protective amulet for me and the unborn child. Just after noon today, I was resting on the couch. Suddenly, there was an unusual commotion from the courtyard. The sound of hurried footsteps, mixed with my mother-in-law's joyful voice. Arya, the Buddha has shown a miracle, a real miracle. My heart skipped a beat, a sense of foreboding washing over me. With Alara's help, I struggled to sit up and walked outside. Just as I reached the veranda, I saw my mother-in-law, her face glowing, walk in. She hadn't been so happy since Julian's death. She even forgot her decorum and grabbed my arm, her voice excited. Look! Look who is back! I knew I was feeling anxious these past few days. It was a sign that heaven had a surprise for us. She suddenly stepped aside, clearing my view. At the courtyard gate against the strong afternoon light, a servant was supporting a figure, limping into the courtyard. His clothes were tattered. A thick stench of sweat emanated from him. His face slowly came into focus. With just one look, I felt my blood run cold. It was Julian. He wasn't dead. His once handsome face was now ruined by a grotesque, twisted scar. It started from his left temple, ran across his eyebrow and nose, and tore down to his right jaw. The flesh turned outward, like a purple-black centipede, and under his tattered robe, his left trouser leg was empty. He leaned heavily on the servant. Every movement seemed to be a great effort. He looked up and stared at me, his voice hoarse. My lady, I'm back. My legs gave out, and if Alara hadn't caught me, I would have collapsed, but the color had already drained from my face. His gaze slowly moved down, finally resting on my protruding belly. He very slowly curled his lips, and the scar twisted with them, making him look even more terrifying. It must have been hard on you while I was away, my lady. She was so excited she was wiping away tears. Yes, Julian. You're back just in time. You can see the child's birth. This is a double blessing. It must be your father's spirit protecting us, allowing our family to be reunited. Overjoyed, she quickly added. You two must have so much to talk about after being apart for so long. I won't get in your way. I'll go to the ancestral hall and offer incense to our ancestors, to tell them the good news. With that, she and the servants quickly left. Alara looked at me with concern, but my mother-in-law pulled her away. She even thoughtfully closed the courtyard gate. The courtyard was frighteningly quiet. Even the wind had stopped. I unconsciously took a step back. Julian watched my movement and let out a low laugh. He leaned against a pillar, his empty trouser leg swaying. He hopped over to me, one step at a time. My lady, he grinned, and the centipede-like scar twisted with it, revealing a set of yellowed teeth. Surprised. Such a high cliff, and it didn't kill me. Even the wild animals in the mountains couldn't finish me off. He reached out, his hand closing around my chin, forcing me to look up. These past few days, I've been thinking of you so much. He leaned in, his hot, foul breath on my face, thinking of you until every bone in my body ached, until I couldn't sleep at night. When I closed my eyes, all I could see was you. I clenched my jaw, forcing out the words. What do you want? He slowly caressed my face, his tone even gentler. Do you know what it is like to have a home you can't return to, a door you can't knock on, to hide in the shadows like a sewer rat and watch you live in glory? My heart sank. So he knew everything. He had been watching from the shadows all along. Of course, how could I have been at ease? As long as his body was not found, I was on edge, unable to sleep or eat. To the outside world, I was deeply devoted and unwilling to accept my husband's death, repeatedly sending people to search for him. What a moving display of love. But only I knew the truth. I just wanted to silence him for good. His gaze moved down, resting on my round belly. Complex emotions swirled in his eyes. Scrutiny, calculation, and mostly, hatred. When he looked up again, his hand was on my belly. Just then, the baby inside me gave a sudden, hard kick. His palm clearly felt it. He paused. Then he let out a sinister laugh. My lady, you see, he is also very happy to see his father. I slapped his hand away and stumbled back, my hands protectively over my belly. He was in no hurry. His empty trouser leg dragged forward another half step, once again casting me in his shadow. "My lady, don't be afraid." He stared at my pale face, his grin widening. "I will certainly protect you and our son. From now on, our family will live a good life together." Those last words pierced my heart. I couldn't stop trembling. Night fell, and all was quiet. Beside me, Julian's breathing was heavy and regular, as if he were asleep. I held my breath, my fingertips reaching under the pillow. The dagger was slowly drawn out. If he didn't die, then I would. My heart hardened, and the intent to kill arose. I used all my strength to stab at his throat. Just as the tip of the blade was an inch away, his eyes suddenly snapped open. There was no trace of sleep in them, only a thick, mocking sneer. In the same instant, he grabbed my wrist, his grip so strong it felt like he would crush my bones. "Ah!" I cried out in pain. My fingers forced open. The dagger fell from my hand. He easily snatched it and tossed it into a dark corner. Before I could react, slap, 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 a series of slaps landed hard on my face. The force was so great that my head snapped to the side, my ears ringing. Half my face was numb, and I tasted blood. "Arie." His low, hoarse voice was like the whisper of a demon. "Did you think, after you pushed me off the cliff, that I would give you a second chance to kill me?" His fingertips dug into my jaw, causing a sharp pain. "I advise you to be a good girl and give birth to this child. Otherwise..." His sinister gaze slowly moved down, finally resting on my protruding belly. The threat in his eyes was unmistakable. From that night on, I was under house arrest. Under the pretext of uncleared enemies who might harm the heir, he easily convinced my mother-in-law to replace a large number of the estate's guards, making the courtyard impenetrable. And because I was approaching my due date and should not be overexerted, he rightfully took over the household keys and account books from me. Months of my hard work were undone in an instant. The last few of my trusted people, including Alara, were transferred away on various excuses. In their place were several silent, unfamiliar maids. They attended to my every need. Every cup of tea I drank, every bite of pastry I ate, was under their watchful eyes. My mother-in-law only saw him as thoughtful and protective of his child. Pitying his disability, she agreed to all his arrangements. I was on edge day and night, waiting for his more insane revenge. But strangely, other than the strict security, he did nothing else. What was he planning? It seemed this child was very important to him. In just a few days, I had lost a significant amount of weight. My eyes were sunken, my face pale, a shocking sight to anyone. I touched my belly. "I'm sorry, little one. You'll have to suffer for a little while." When my mother-in-law came, she found me trembling inexplicably by the window. She took my cold hands, her eyes filled with pity. "Arya, how did you become so frail? At this rate, how will you and the baby survive?" I gripped her sleeve tightly, my eyes instantly turning red. "Mother, I can hear my cousin crying in my ear every night. She says she is so lonely. She says the bottom of the cliff is so dark." I shivered suddenly, my eyes darting around fearfully, as if there were something invisible nearby. My voice grew more distraught. "Mother, I'm scared. I'm so scared. My cousin says she wants me to go and keep her company." Tears fell in a timely manner, and I sobbed. "Mother, let me go to the temple and offer incense for my cousin to pray for her soul. Otherwise, I can't sleep at night. I'm afraid I won't make it to the delivery." Just then, Julian entered with his cane. Without a second thought, he cut me off coldly. "Absurd. You are so heavily pregnant. Can you withstand the journey? There is a Buddhist hall in the estate. Where can't you find peace?" My gaze fell on the empty space behind him. My pupils dilated, and I pointed with a trembling finger, letting out a piercing scream. "Ah, see, cousin. Don't come over here. Why are you standing behind my husband again? Why are you always looking at him?" His face changed drastically. and he couldn't help but look back. I suddenly covered my mouth and retched violently. Arya! My mother-in-law was terrified and quickly supported me, her voice sharp. Doctor! Get the doctor! The family doctor rushed in. After a careful examination, he said with a grave expression, Matriarch, the lady is suffering from excessive worry and fear, which has injured her spirit. Coupled with a lack of appetite and internal stagnation, it has led to weakness and vomiting. If she cannot find peace and eat properly, I'm afraid it will be very detrimental to both mother and child. I leaned weakly against my mother-in-law, my tears flowing, and pleaded with her. Mother, please, let me put my mind at ease. Maybe then I can eat. Seeing this, my mother-in-law no longer hesitated. Go. You must go. I will arrange it. Tomorrow, I will personally accompany you to the temple. His face was terrifyingly dark. His gaze swept over my face, trying to find any flaw in my act. After a long moment, he squeezed out a sentence from between his teeth. I wouldn't dare trouble Mother again. I will personally accompany her. He approached, looking down at me, a cold smile on his lips. Rest assured, Mother. I will not leave Arya's side for a moment. I will make sure she finishes her prayers peacefully and returns to the estate in one piece. I had guessed correctly. When Julian broke his leg, he also injured his foundation. The child in my belly was his only bloodline, so he could only suppress his hatred and wait for me to give birth safely before settling the score. Inside the temple, the scent of sandalwood filled the air. I knelt on a cushion, holding 3 incense sticks, my face full of piety. Julian stood a few steps away, his tone full of warning. Behave. After you've finished your prayers, we're going back. Don't get any funny ideas. I lowered my eyelashes, hiding all my emotions, and respectfully placed the incense in the burner. Just then, a woman in a plain white dress, her head bowed, passed by him. Just a glimpse of her profile, his pupils constricted, and he so far forgot himself as to drag his crippled leg and stumble after her, muttering under his breath, "Oh, Lila!" The woman, as if startled, quickened her pace, hurrying through the back courtyard toward the quiet release pond. He followed closely behind. By the time he caught up to her at the water's edge, he grabbed her shoulder, his voice filled with terror. Lila, is that you? The woman turned, revealing a face that was 70% similar to Lila's, her eyes filled with fear. He was stunned. He seemed to let out a small sigh of relief. Just as he was about to speak, a dark figure pushed him forcefully from behind. Splash! He didn't even have time to cry out before he was thrown into the lake. He was already disabled. His heavy winter robes now dragged him down to the bottom. He thrashed and struggled wildly in the water, creating a series of splashes. I stood on the bank, watching his pathetic state with a smirk. Husband. My voice was calm. I could push you once, and I can push you again. The cliff didn't kill you. It seems this lake is destined to be your grave. He struggled to lift his head, trying to scream curses, but the water rushing into his mouth muffled his words. He could only make gurgling sounds, perhaps out of a primal instinct for survival. He managed to struggle to the bank, his wet hand desperately grabbing a clump of grass. I walked over and stomped on his hand. Ugh! A pained grunt came from under the water. He recoiled in pain. Losing his balance again, he fell back into the water with a larger splash. I crouched down, watching his death throes, and said slowly, Husband, since your return, you have been a vegetarian, not touching any meat. How strange. The bottom of that cliff is desolate, not even a bird to be seen. How did you survive? My smile grew colder. You must have your cousin to thank for getting through those days, right? Was she delicious? His eyes widened, and he even forgot to struggle for a moment. I couldn't help but applaud. You forced me to die for her. And in the end, to save yourself, you chose to let her die. Julian, the only person you have ever loved is yourself. He was no longer struggling. He sank straight down, only a desperate gurgling sound coming from his throat. I stood up and dusted off my dress. From the moment you set foot in the estate, you stepped into my trap. This prayer was meant to be for your salvation. The lake bubbled for a moment. Then it was completely calm. The woman in white appeared from the side. The fear on her face was gone. She bowed deeply to me. Benefactor, is there anything else you need me to do? I took a pouch of money from my sleeve and placed it in her hand. You did well. This is enough for you to leave the capital and live a peaceful life elsewhere. Benefactor. Her eyes reddened, and she tried to push the pouch back. You saved me from a brothel. That is a debt I can never repay. I cannot take this money. I raised my hand to stop her. Take it. This is not a reward. This is hush money. You have never seen me, and I have never seen you understand. Hearing this, she trembled, immediately understanding the implications. She no longer refused, clutching the pouch to her chest. She took 2 steps back and kowtowed 3 times. Take care, benefactor. I will repay your kindness in the next life. With that, she quickly stood up and left. Rose, the woman in white, was a pawn I had set in place months ago. In my search for Julian, I had not overlooked even the most notorious brothels. After all, it was the best place for information in the capital. My people, during their investigation, had come across Rose, who was about to... Her gambler husband had sold her into this hellhole to pay off his debts. And coincidentally, she bore a 70% resemblance to Lila. So, I had her bought out and hidden away. I had a feeling she would be useful one day. Julian was indeed clever. He had been hiding in the shadows, waiting for his chance. But he didn't know that my mother-in-law's trip to the temple was also part of my plan. With my due date approaching, I could not allow this threat to remain by my side. I had to force him out. Did he think that by openly reuniting with my mother-in-law, I would be powerless against him? A joke. Today was the perfect trap designed just for him. Most of the new servants he had brought in had been bribed by Alara. The few remaining loyal ones would now serve as witnesses to today's events. Alara appeared silently by my side, her hand steady on my arm. My lady, everything is taken care of. No one saw. She led me through a hidden side corridor, quickly back to the private meditation room for female guests. The room was clean, the scent of sandalwood faint. Proceed as planned, I whispered. Yes. Alara deftly changed me into a plain dress. Then she returned the way she came. I was alone again. Outside, the estate servants were still waiting. They thought I had been inside quietly copying scriptures and praying for my unborn child. About half an incense stick later, the old matron knocked gently on the door, her voice respectful. My lady, it is getting late. The abbot has sent someone to ask if you would like to have a vegetarian meal at the temple before returning. The old matron was a long-time servant of the estate, and my mother-in-law's most trusted confidante. She had been a midwife in her younger years and was very experienced with childbirth. My mother-in-law had insisted she come, just in case of any accidents. The room was silent. The old matron called out a few more times, her voice louder, still only silence. A sense of unease grew in her heart. She tentatively pushed open the door and saw me slumped beside the couch. My face pale, my forehead covered in cold sweat, my hands clutching my belly in pain. The skirt beneath me was soaked. Oh no! The old matron cried out. Summoning help! The lady's water has broken! She is going into labor. Quick, get a midwife! Go and inform the marquise! The area outside the door erupted in chaos. The servants' cries, the sound of running feet, the clatter of utensils, all mixed into a chaotic mess. It hurts. It hurts so much, husband. I was curled up in a ball of pain. I wasn't faking it. This time, it was real. I had calculated the time and taken a specially prepared drug to induce labor. Now, real contractions were washing over me, the pain excruciating. A woman in difficult labor is less likely to be suspected. Besides, the lake was secluded and deserted, the perfect place to dispose of a body. I gritted my teeth and let the servants frantically get me settled, waiting for the arrival of a new life, and waiting for the news of his death. After 2 long days and nights of struggle, a baby's cry finally filled the room. I collapsed onto the soaked bedding, too weak to even lift a finger. The old matron carefully brought the wrinkled little bundle to me. "My lady! Look, it is a little master. He has your eyes." I forced my weak body up, greedily gazing at the tiny life. The emptiness in my heart seemed to be filled. Just as I was about to touch his cheek, there was a sudden commotion outside. A young maid ran in, her voice filled with terror. "My lady, it is terrible. The release pond. Something floated to the surface. It is the Marquis's body." The room fell silent. I froze, my pupils constricting. The next moment my body went limp and I fell backward, fainting in heartbreak. My acting was so convincing, I almost believed it myself. When I woke up again, I was back at the estate. The old matron was by my bedside. Seeing me awake, she was both happy and sad. "My lady, you're finally awake. You must grieve, but the young master needs you," she told me through her sobs. My mother-in-law, upon hearing of Julian's death, had coughed up a mouthful of blood, and had not been able to get up since. The best imperial physicians had come twice, but both shook their heads, saying her grief was too great. Her lamp had run out of oil, and she probably only had a few days left. My heart was filled with complex emotions. I always felt a little guilty toward my mother-in-law. To be fair, she had treated me well since I married into the family. But Julian had to die. It wasn't just for me, but for my child. I held my sleeping baby and, despite my own postpartum weakness, went to my mother-in-law's bedside. The once dignified old lady was now a withered figure, her breathing shallow. Only when she saw the child in my arms did a faint light appear in her cloudy eyes. She laboriously raised her hand and gently touched the baby's cheek, a faint smile on her lips. "Good child. To protect our family, to bring a lifetime of peace. I hope that in the future, he will know right from wrong, be kind and upright, and be able to protect his mother. Not like his father, who went astray, who was beyond redemption, and in the end betrayed all those who loved and trusted him." I snapped my head up. She knew everything. Her hand slowly slid down and gently took mine. There was no resentment in her eyes, only an endless weariness. "Arya." Her voice was so weak, it was almost inaudible. "I don't know what Julian did to drive you to such lengths, but for you to go this far, he must have committed a grave sin. I cannot forgive what you have done, but I also cannot blame you." Her gaze fell on Ethan. "Let it end today. Let all the grievances be buried with me." She squeezed my fingers, her eyes pleading. "From now on, the family and Ethan are in your hands. Raise him well, make him an honorable man. Will you?" I nodded heavily, choked with emotion. Hearing my words, as if a great weight had been lifted from her shoulders, a faint smile of relief even touched her lips. She slowly closed her eyes. My mother-in-law had guessed the truth, but in the end, she chose silence, chose to protect me, to protect her only grandson, to protect the last bit of dignity in the future of this estate. She personally settled the case with the authorities, attributing everything to an accident. I held Ethan and slowly knelt by the bed. Tears streamed down my face. As if sensing the immense grief, Ethan suddenly burst into tears. All that had passed was now in the past. This grand estate from now on would be under my rule and inherited by my son.